Hi, this is Degé with Patient Advocacy Network at Cannabis Saves Lives, and this is your next edition of the Compassion Flower Report. We took a break last week. We didn't record or post a show. It was right before the election, and so we took some time off. And wow, I mean, we were very busy around here. We took some time off from the show, but not much else. It's been a little chaotic. I normally like to be a very good steward of your time and jump right into the headlines and stick to the point here, which is to talk about medical cannabis. However, like you said, like I just mentioned, we had the midterm elections. Um, right after those elections, we had our United States Attorney General resign, which is big in cannabis to have a change in who the attorney general is, because that generally gives a bit of a change in the weather of how cannabis issues will be handled by the DEA. And then here on a more local level, right after Jeff Sessions resigns, one of the LA City Council members had his home and office raided by the FBI right after the election. Then right after that, we had a shooting here in Thousand Oaks, which is just northwest of Los Angeles. It's on that 101 corridor as you wind your way out of Los Angeles and into Ventura. And then no sooner than that shooting took place and people are trying to grapple with that, then we have a very large fire burning in that exact same area. Some of the families that were just beginning to wrap their minds around the idea that they had to plan a funeral immediately had to evacuate. And then of course we've got the fire up in Butte. So it's heavy here because it's literally in the air. Um, I'm here in Southern California, but I'm not in any danger. I'm not near the fire. Um, it's just up the road from me. It's incredibly close, but I'm not in any evacuation zone. However, the smoke and the ash is all throughout the area, and there's constant evacuation notices and road closure notices, and it's been really kind of heavy here. So I'm glad to get back into it and get another report to you. The midterms, medical marijuana passed in Utah and Missouri. Missouri's Amendment 2 was one out of three different initiatives that were on the ballot there. The legislature in Utah is drafting a companion bill to go with Prop 2. We've talked about that in other shows. That it'll be interesting to see how they're going to handle trying to incorporate another bill to fix something that's a voter initiative. Generally, that's a big no-no. So we're going to have to see how that plays out legal-wise. And see how the implementation goes. Michigan is now recreational. They've had a hard time barely getting out their medical licenses, but now they've got 21 and up to contend with. They are the first state in the Midwest to go recreational, so that's fantastic. So to jump into the headlines, and as I usually like to do when there's a good international story, I like to share that with you. This headline out of the AAP, which I'm assuming when I look to find out more about what the AAP is, the Australian AP, this is in news.com, Australia. Australia's cannabis industry set to boom report. Australia's medical marijuana industry is in its early stage, but it could soon be worth billions as a new report reveals a surprising statistic. So what recently happened in Australia is there was a very big conference there called Cannatech. And I think because the medical marijuana program in Australia has suffered so much, I think they wanted to try to put out some good news, some potential good news, while a lot of the media would be paying attention because of this conference. So the story says about 7 people a day are being approved for medical cannabis. As new research suggests, the $18 million industry could be worth billions within a decade. There's a new application system that has increased in approvals in recent months. It says the administration has approved 469 applications. The industry is expected to boom in coming years, exciting the medical cannabis pharmaceutical sector, advocates and patients who have converged on Sydney this week for the Cannatech conference. So, and again, it's kind of ambiguous there about whether these applications are specifically for patient status or if it's for cultivators, things of that nature. But this story goes on to let it be known that it's been very difficult for patients to get approved. But to go into the part of the story where they talk about their statistics, market intelligence firm Prohibition Partners, it's an interesting name for a firm, discussing its new report that suggests the nation's legal medicinal cannabis market, currently valued at 17.7 million annually, could balloon to 1.2 billion by 2024 and then 3 billion by 2028. Australia's cannabis industry can grow even more with a recreational market worth up to 8.8 billion annually in a decade if it's legalized soon, the report says. So yeah, I think this story took some statistics and some information and made some projections. I'm sure to get the attention of those who are paying attention as a result of this Cannatech conference, to put a little bit more of a fire under Australia, get more patients approved, get more outlets approved. The article goes on with patient stories, and talks about how cumbersome it has been in Australia to get medical marijuana, and they talk about their experience, and they're also talking about the fact that the number of desired users is really increasing. So if Australia gets it together, that's another country that could really do well in medical cannabis as well as adult recreational use. This story right after the election, this is from the Atlantic. It says marijuana stocks spiked after Jeff Sessions resigned. The former attorney general was a major political roadblock to further cannabis legalization. Jeff Sessions is gone, and marijuana advocates and the businesses that serve them are celebrating. Forced out by President Donald Trump, Sessions tendered his resignation as the Attorney General on Wednesday afternoon, and his departure was signaled by a fall of major political has signaled the fall of a major political roadblock to more widespread legalization. In response, stock prices for cannabis businesses have leapt. Nasdaq's Alternative Harvest Marijuana ETF, a fund that bundles tradable assets for the cannabis industry, was up 5.6% in the hour after the Sessions announcement, with a peak share price of $36.97, a nearly $2 gain for the fund. On the day, the fund was up more than 7% at the close of trading. Individual cannabis company stocks are also seeing the effects of Sessions' departure. According to CNBC, the Canadian company Tilray got a boost of 30% in the day's trading, along with jumps of more than 8% for both Canopy Growth and Aurora Cannabis. All of these companies continue to see gains in the immediate extended hours trading. I don't want to read all of it. It is interesting. It goes into talking about people favoring legalization, and how Jeff Sessions said that good people don't smoke pot, and he even blamed the opioid epidemic in some way on cannabis. Just how ill-informed Jeff Sessions has been. Trump has appointed Sessions' chief of staff Matthew Whitaker as his acting replacement. It's unclear how long Whitaker could be in the role or who might replace him. and what that person's thoughts on cannabis legalization might be. Republican makers generally oppose it, though a majority of Republican voters have been found to support legalization. But now weed investors appear to be breathing or inhaling a sigh of relief. Again, that's out of the Atlantic, and that is called Marijuana Stocks Spiked After Jeff Sessions Resigned. I'll include that link in the description below. However, again, all these headlines and many, many, many more are available at our Twitter at Cannabis, at Pan for Compassion. And then I also send out a digest of these headlines for you through our email list, which you can sign up for very easily at cannabissaveslives.org. Registered medical marijuana patients dropping fast in Oregon. This is an AP story that I found in the Oregonian. Medical marijuana patients and growers across the state are abandoning the medical marijuana program, the OMMP, as it will be referred to in the rest of the story. Long considered a source of Oregon's black market, medical marijuana is fast falling victim to a combination of red tape and a different kind of market force, the convenience of recreational retail sales. Medical could officially have a gravestone, said Kit Doyle, who formerly sold medical marijuana but switched to hemp products through his business, the Murphy Hemp Company. The number of patients registered with the program is half what it was a year ago. Statewide, it dropped 41% from a little over 59,000 patients to almost 35,000 patients. It's 59,137 is what it was, to 34,892 if you want to digest some numbers. The number of registered growers has dropped. Statewide, it went from 23,175 to 13,959, 40%. Doyle and several industry watchers think the numbers will continue to go down. Medical marijuana has been legal in Oregon since 1998, when voters created a system that allowed registered persons to grow their own marijuana or obtain it from someone who grew it for them. But even as the legislature took steps to allow dispensaries for medical marijuana, a sea change occurred in 2014 when voters legalized recreational marijuana, allowing retail sales to anyone over 21 and setting up commercial production. It also allows people to grow up to 4 recreational plants with no registration requirements except where prohibited by local law. To feed those outlets, the state issued licenses to prove growers and operators. As of this week, there have been 475 applications to grow, process, sell, or test marijuana in Josephine County for the retail market. That's just one county, reflecting the region's conducive to cannabis climate. The vast majority, 399, were for recreational farms. Medical marijuana patients who buy at retail dispensaries are able to avoid sales taxes that can reach 20%, although they must pay an annual $200 application fee to be a medical marijuana registered patient. I wonder why the numbers are growing down, right? I mean, that's usually what it is. They make it so bureaucratic for patients that it's just easier to just be 21 and up and just go get it and not have to hassle with the doctor, et cetera, et cetera. The hassle of having to pony up the $200 annual application fee and the proliferation of dispensaries selling recreational pot appears to be a factor in the decline. I repeatedly hear from customers, said Dana Calvert of River City Retail Medical Marijuana Dispensary in Merlin. They say, I let my medical card expire. It's too expensive to renew. I'll just pay the taxes. Or, as Rob Bovitt, who helped write the new rules as legal counsel for the Association of Oregon Counties, put it, those who are getting an OMMP card as a ruse to get marijuana for recreational purposes no longer need to continue the ruse after we legalized recreational marijuana. Yeah, there's that argument that anyone that's using cannabis enough to the point where they're willing to get a card and go into a store, they're using that cannabis therapeutically. It's not a ruse. The other thing that's not a ruse is that they keep making the rules so expensive and so cumbersome on patients that patients continue to go to the black market. It's another reason why you don't need to renew your card. Is if you're going to go to the black market, guess what? A dealer doesn't ask you for your card. He just wants your money. Those who remain medical marijuana patients include heavy users and those who live in an apartment or other location where they can't grow their own. For those patients who rely on a grower, finding one can be difficult because their numbers are diminishing, patient advocates say. So there was this system in Oregon where you kind of relied on that caregiver system. You found someone to grow it for you, had this agreement. Well, patients being able to find someone specifically to take that role on is diminishing. So the whole fabric of the way the medical marijuana program was in Oregon is completely it's in the process of completely changing and evolving because of adult recreational use. And we're going to be seeing that everywhere and in its own way, state by state. With the changes they've made to the medical marijuana program, it's much more difficult to care for other patients. Therefore, the number of growers willing to do that has dropped significantly. And that's again the um, this is where it starts. It says the regulations around providing for other patients are quite erroneous, said Cedar Gray, a Williams area grower who sits on the Oregon Cannabis Commission, a state regulatory body. I actually think that's the big factor. Many patients are just unable to find a grower to supply them. It says with the changes they've made, it's much more difficult to care for patients. Therefore, the number of growers willing to do that has dropped. Um, the other thing that this story goes on to, which I also found this very interesting. It's kind of buried in the story, and you don't really get that from the headline. But this is really important because everybody is going to be dealing with this because there's the just about everybody has that seed to sale tracking requirement in their state law. As of this year, medical marijuana growers who are supplying patients with marijuana must use an online state reporting system that tracks movement of product. Some say the tracking system, known as METRC, is difficult to learn and use. The state provides training, but growers don't like it, and some might drop out because of it. The new reporting system is something people aren't going to be able to adapt to, said Peter Dendron, president of the Oregon Sun Growers Guild, a locally based association of growers. The training is inadequate. The tech support is woefully inadequate. It takes a minimum of 10 to 12 hours to access basic functionality of the system, Dendron continued. I don't know a single person who is completely proficient. It's not an easy system to use. You can't really expect a 70-year-old to navigate it. Gendron expects the number of registered marijuana growers to continue to drop. He himself has stopped growing for others, saying he doesn't have the time. He previously supplied 8 patients, allowing him to grow 48 plants or 6 mature plants per client. Gendron said the situation for patients is made all the more difficult if they are low income, as more than half of the medical marijuana patients. They don't have the money to go to the corner dispensary, he said. That might lead some to return to pills to treat their condition, he said. Gendron also blamed the drop in the number of growers on the county's ongoing attempts to restrict commercial marijuana operations in rural residential zones, although he mostly blamed new state regulations. The county shares the majority of the blame, he said. It's really the state legislature. Oh, he says the county shares the minority of the blame. It's really the state legislature which has done the absolute most damage when they changed reporting rules for the OMMP. They put into place barriers that destroyed the patient grower relationship. So, again, it's kind of that same story. It's getting too difficult and expensive for patients, and of course, it's always the low income patients, the people for which these medical marijuana laws were passed for in the first place, are the ones that are really getting damaged by them. This story out of the Miami Herald says, Judge, New Mexico's medical pot plant limit is arbitrary. In a big win for medical marijuana producers in New Mexico, a district judge has ruled that a state imposed limit on the number of plants they can grow as part of their licensed operations is arbitrary and not based on reliable data. Judge David Thompson, in a ruling made public Friday, invalidated the 450 plant limit that the State Department of Health imposes on producers. The judge also set a 4-month deadline for the agency to study the issue and establish a new plant limit that complies with legislative mandates that guide New Mexico's medical marijuana program. The ruling stems from a lawsuit that alleged the agency wasn't fulfilling its obligations to ensure an adequate supply of medical marijuana. There have long been concerns about shortages as the population of licensed patients has grown exponentially. As of the end of September, there were nearly 59,000 active patients, pretty big for the state of New Mexico. And SSDOH has issued its regulatory authority in a manner that with an end toward impeding the purpose of the act, the judge wrote. Further, its regulatory mandate of 450 plants is not based on fact or reliable data and is not rationally related to its regulatory authority. More importantly, it impedes the ability to assure medical marijuana patients have an adequate supply. So the department, they said that they're going to do their part, and they're going to focus on ensuring that patients have access, and it sounds like they've got a very political quote here indicating that they're going to follow the judge ruling. This story, and the last one I will share with you. Yes, this one I found kind of interesting because just by the fact that it made the news, and it's in the Washington Post. It says Maryland marijuana recall. ForwardGro, all one word, Forward, capital GRO, ForwardGro, one word. I'm not calling them out. I don't know who they are. They're probably, they're really they're in hot water here because they're like right there in the headline. ForwardGro products ordered off the shelves. Commission won't say why. Okay, so this is in Maryland, where the Marijuana Commission there has pulled the products from this one company off all the shelves that it's on statewide. Maryland state regulators have taken a medical marijuana grower's products off the market, prompting questions but few answers from dispensaries, patients, and other industry players. The Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission issued an administrative hold on all products using marijuana grown by ForwardGro. Okay, so this isn't just the bud. If these people are producing cannabis that is then going from the cultivation end over to, let's just say, it's being turned into butter, it's being turned into hash, all of those products, even if it's maybe under somebody else's brand, they're all being pulled off the shelves and on an administrative hold. Grown by ForwardGro, which operates a large greenhouse in Lothian in I'm going to mess this up. Arundel County, Anne Arundel County. The hold communicated to the state's 69 dispensaries on October 7th was described as a precautionary measure. The commission ordered sellers to quarantine ForwardGro products, adding follow-up instructions will be forthcoming in the future. 3 weeks later, patients and caregivers remain in the dark about what sort of hazard the fledgling regulatory agency might be trying to guard against. ForwardGro was the first business in Maryland to obtain a full license to grow marijuana for medical purposes ahead of the industry's launch last year. Marijuana legalized marijuana for medical use in 2013, but the program's rollout was beset by delays and controversies. The hold on ForwardGro's products is among the first demonstrations of how the Commission will go about flexing its regulatory muscle. The Commission's action comes after complaints this summer by former ForwardGro employees that the business was illegally using pesticides on its crop. The company has denied the allegation. Story goes on to talk about how the Commission is declining any comment because there's an active investigation going on. Patients, caregivers, dispensary operators, and the various trade associations, are they're frustrated because they want answers. They need to know they've got product they can't sell. They can't do anything with it. Patients who've already purchased these products I'm sure they're going, well, I can't use them or I don't want to use them. And everyone's wanting to know why the Commission is completely dragging their feet on providing anybody with any answers. But again, those are just a handful of the stories that I thought were interesting this week. Again, if you want to learn more about what happened with the midterm election in Missouri, in Michigan, in Utah, there was even a vote that they took, a non-binding vote that they took, more like a statewide poll in Wisconsin, and marijuana is polling in the 60 percentile in that state. So we're probably going to see another Midwestern state move forward with at least medical. Wisconsin certainly can do adult recreational. They have been doing Harvest Fest in that state for a long time, which is a really good time. So I really want to thank you all for watching. I want to remind you again that the Patient Advocacy Network, we are an educational 501c3. We exist and do what we do purely with your donations. There's a lot of work to be done around California and around the country to ensure that patients have safe, affordable access to medical cannabis, and the Patient Advocacy Network is very instrumental in making sure that patients have the tools that they need to take on their local legislative bodies in order to get the laws that they want and need to best take care of themselves. You can find us at cannabissaveslives.org. You can make a donation there. I encourage you to make a donation of any amount you wish. Become a monthly donor. It helps us immensely. You can follow us on Twitter at Pan for Compassion. Find all the headlines there. Sign up for email updates. Find all of our social media. I thank you very much. Please like and subscribe to our channel. And until next week, I'm Degé Coutee with the Patient Advocacy Network at Cannabis Saves Lives. Thank you for your time.